government of Venezuela denounced a new plan to sabotage the national infrastructure. Saturday, Donetsk Center was shelled by Ukrainian armed forces. In Iran, citizens joined the celebration of the 33rd anniversary of the founder of the Islamic Republic, Ayatollah Khomeini's death. Hi, this is From the South. I am your news anchor, Diego Martin, from the teleSUR studios in Havana. We begin with the news. The government of Venezuela denounced a new plan to sabotage the national infrastructure. According to the Minister of Petroleum, Tarek El-Aissami, this new sabotage attempt against the electrical system of the El Palito refinery, located in the municipality of Puerto Cabello, Carabobo State, was planned from Colombia with the consent and complicity of the government of Iván Duque. He also revealed that as part of this plan, the protection systems were manipulated so that in the event of any contingency, the inhibition would occur and in turn cause an explosion of incalculable consequences in the main plant, causing not only an impact on the electrical service, but also putting at risk the lives of the oil workers. The sectoral vice president of economy stated that in view of this vandalic action, security has been ordered to be redoubled at the El Palito refinery. In Brazil, after the heavy rains in the last days, the Pernambuco governor's office announced a 100 million reais emergency aid package. However, the population claims that the authorities do not have a clear plan. Our correspondent Brian Meyer reports.
According to the Pernambuco governor's office, 9,000 people have been displaced from houses that were condemned or destroyed during last week's landslides in Greater Recife. But according to residents of the disaster zones, the government hasn't provided an adequate relocation plan.
A lot of people in this neighborhood lost their houses and documents, lost everything except their lives, thanks to Jesus. I'm one of them. I lost my house and I'm staying at my mom's, but a lot of people don't have anywhere to go.
In Buracão, where the MST is distributing 1,800 meals a day, the civil defense dug dozens of bodies out of the mud, laid plastic tarps over the most precarious cliff sides, ordered residents to move to shelters and left the area, but hundreds of people are still living in condemned houses there.
The mayor's office comes every year during rainy seasons and asks us to go to shelters, but doesn't give us any other support. Just puts these plastic tarps up, but they go soaked with water. Our bedrooms are in the rear of the house near the cliff, but when it rains, I move our beds into the living room and sleep there with my kids.
The only benefit available to Recife's thousands of internally displaced people is a small emergency rent stipend, a quarter of the minimum wage. Last week, Governor Paulo Câmara announced a 100 million real emergency aid package. He said it will include monthly payments for displaced families, but state lawmakers say the bill hasn't been submitted to the legislature yet.
Everything slid away. My house was destroyed and me and my kids had to get out of there quick. I don't have anywhere to go. I don't want to live in a shelter with 5 kids.
As thousands of people try to figure out where they will go, it's still raining every day. Brian Meyer, teleSUR, Recife.
Cuban authorities reported at least 3 people dead as a consequence of the heavy rains that have been going on in the west and central parts of the country during the last couple of days. Cuba's civil defense reports that during the last 24 hours, torrential and relentless rains have caused landslides, floods, disruptions to power services, and damages to houses and buildings in the west and central part of Cuba. 445 people have been evacuated by the civil defense teams, while 1,914 have self-evacuated. According to the latest report, 20 families in Havana have been affected by 61 partial and 1 total structural collapses. The rains are associated with a low-pressure area located in the seas near the Yucatan Peninsula and have a high probability to develop into a tropical storm in the next 24 to 48 hours. The government of Venezuela delivered over 41 tons of humanitarian aid to Suriname to help those affected by the floods registered in the last days. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Carlos Farias, stated that this humanitarian aid includes medicines, medical supplies, drinking water, and food that will be transported by the Simón Bolívar Humanitarian Task Force following orders from President Nicolás Maduro. Likewise, the official detailed that a technical team made up of emergency experts, civil protection, and disaster management officials was sent. They will make an assessment of the damage caused by the strong floods in the Caribbean nation. The Vice Minister for the Caribbean of Venezuela, Raúl Lee Causi, detailed part of the humanitarian aid delivered to the people of Suriname. And singers and musicians from Suriname and other countries have got together to pay tribute in a song video to the tragedy suffered recently by that nation as a result of torrential rains and floods. The song, entitled "The Flood in Suriname," was composed and directed by the Dutch Surinamese flautist Ronald Snijders and performed by a group of multinational musicians under the name of Stars of Suriname. We're going to take a short break now. Please join us again after this. Hi, and welcome back to From the South. Saturday, the Donetsk Central was shelled by Ukrainian armed forces, according to a report by the authorities of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic. As a result of the shelling of the Voroshilovsky district of Donetsk, 10 people were injured, of whom there is one child, of which 9 patients are of moderate seriously and 1 patient is in critical condition. All victims were hospitalized in health facilities in Donetsk. Local authorities warned there could be a higher number of casualties. Civil objectives in the center of the city of Donetsk have been targeted Saturday by Ukrainian forces. The local security troops are still looking for possible victims. teleSUR's special envoy in Donetsk, Alejandro Kirk, brings us details.
A massive attack against central Donetsk took place tonight in this capital city of the People's Republic of Donetsk. Several residential buildings, houses, cars were damaged by the Grad missiles that are the type that is shot by those commonly known as Katyushas, which is a multiple missile launcher. There are no estimates so far of victims of this attack, but the artillery battle continues as we speak.
Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko condemned the development of a Western plan to extend the conflict in Ukraine. During a press conference, Lukashenko stressed the special concern of Russian President Vladimir Putin for the security of his country. Likewise, the Belarusian president pointed out that not only Russia but also his country is under attack from the West, and they need to think about how to defend themselves without increasing tensions in Ukraine. Lukashenko also remarked his fears that the conflict will deepen and lead to a third world war. The Belarusian president had warned in other instances that the West needs a long-term war in Ukraine in order to choke Russia and Belarus. The Russian Defense Ministry's authorities reported the dismantling of a Ukrainian military training center north of the country. Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov reported that missiles launched by Russian aircraft hit an artillery training center of the Ukrainian armed forces in the Sumy region, where foreign instructors were working. The Russian official added that the high-precision rockets also hit a deployment point of mercenaries from other countries near the town of Dachnoye in the Odessa region. At the same time, there were 27 areas for troops and war equipment were destroyed. There was 2 command posts, 6 missile and artillery launching systems, and ammunition and fuel warehouses in the self-proclaimed Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics as well. In France, health authorities confirmed Saturday 51 cases of monkeypox in the country, most of them in the Parisian region. The public health update represents an increase of 18 infections with the viral disease. As of Friday, 2 p.m. local time, out of the 51 cases identified, 37 belong to the Paris region, which covers 8 departments. So far, no deaths have been reported from monkeypox, and all of those infected are men between 22 and 63 years old. Among the cases, 22 have traveled abroad, and almost all of those infected say they did not know the origin of infection. In Germany, the federal parliament, known as the Bundestag, passed a special defense fund of 100 billion euros to upgrade the German army. The measure to create the fund received 593 votes in favor, 80 deputies voted against it, and 7 abstained. In order to accept this change, the Bundestag had to rewrite the constitution to exempt the fund from the so-called debt brake enforced by fiscal discipline. The money for the fund will be raised through loans and will be used to complete the regular defense budget and thus upgrade the army, acquiring armaments and other equipment such as F-35 fighters. The fund would allow Berlin to meet NATO's goal of spending each year 2% of the country's gross domestic product on defense. In China, at least 1 person died and 14 were injured. This is according to a report after a bullet train derailed Saturday in Guizhou province, southwest of the Asian giant. The accident took place at mid-morning when the train driver noticed irregularities on the railroad tracks at the entrance of a tunnel, which forced him to activate the emergency brakes. However, this caused the cab to crash against the walls, resulting in the derailment of 2 wagons. The impact of the maneuver caused the death of the locomotive driver, while a female worker and 13 passengers were injured in their heads and shoulders. 2 of them are still in intensive care. We have more news coming up after our final short break. Please stay with us. And welcome back. In Iran, citizens joined the celebration of the 33rd anniversary of the founder of the Islamic Republic, Imam Khomeini's death. Iranian citizens gathered at his mausoleum in the south of Tehran, the capital city, to remember their leader. The ceremony took place after a 2-year pause due to the COVID-19 pandemic. According to police estimates, over 150,000 people from different cities attended the event. Participants expressed their loyalty to the deceased leader and his ideals, even though the country is facing problems due to U.S. sanctions. Imam Khomeini is considered by his followers as a symbol of resistance and struggle against imperialism. Tunisian police clashed with protesters rallying against President Kais Saied's referendum. The clashes occurred while around 100 people demonstrated against the planned July referendum, a year after his power-grab opponents described as a coup. The police blocked the protesters as they attempted to reach the headquarters of the electoral board, whose chief Saied had replaced last month in a further move to extend his control of state institutions. On July 25, 2021, Saied sacked the government and suspended parliament, which he later dissolved. Saied has laid out plans for a referendum next month on a replacement for a 2014 constitution that had enshrined a mixed parliamentary presidential system, often plagued by deadlock and nepotism. Kenya's Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission clears current Deputy President William Ruto to run for the country's presidency in the upcoming election in August. The commission said Ruto met all the qualifications for clearance as a presidential candidate. His running mate will be Rigathi Gachagua, who is the outgoing member of parliament of Mathira constituency. Ruto and Rigathi will view on the United Democratic Alliance ticket. Considered an early frontrunner, Ruto used the occasion to criticize what he believes to be unfair treatment from the Kenyan media.
Mr. Chairman and our returning officer, I want to say in this podium that Kenya Kwanza has confidence in the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Respectfully, we want to request our friends in the fourth estate, the media, we want to request them to be fair. So far, we have been treated unfairly, Mr.
The African National Congress, South African Communist Party, Congress of South African Trade Unions, and the Progressive Civil Society led by Africa for Palestine held a symbolic human chain picket at the Israeli embassy in Pretoria, condemning the murder of the Palestinian journalist Shireen Abu Akleh. Our collaborator, Clever Banganai, reports.
Even during COVID-19 in 2021, the African National Congress and its alliance partners and progressive civil society promised to continue the campaign in support of the Palestinian people. Today it was not different, as dozens of picketers gathered again at the Israeli embassy in Pretoria to protest on the killing of Palestinian journalist Shireen Abu Akleh.
Palestine, viva! Viva Palestine, viva! Viva Palestine, viva! Panze apartheid Israel, panze! Panze apartheid Israel, panze! Long live the spirit of Nelson Mandela, long live! Long live the spirit of Yasser Arafat, long live! Long live the spirit of Samora Machel, long live! Long live the spirit of Oliver Tambo, long live! Long live the spirit of Fidel Castro, long live!
Different leaders of the alliance partners addressed the protesters, committing their organization to continue their solidarity with people of Palestine. This is what they had to say.
We are saying as COSATU, the brutal conflict has taken hundreds of Palestinian lives and caused untold suffering. Shireen Abu was brutally, barbaric shot at while she was doing her job. As COSATU, we are appealing to everyone that is here. We are appealing to your families, relatives, friends, to make sure that you participate on social media by sharing the videos, commenting, and engaging comrades on Palestine-related content.
We're unapologetic as the Communist Party to say until the people of Palestine are free, we're not free as a nation here in South Africa.
This activity is about bringing to the attention of the Israeli government that we are outraged by the killing of Shireen Abu Akleh, a Palestinian voice that was killed brutally by the Israeli forces. We are demanding justice for Shireen, and we are sending our condolences to her family and friends and colleagues.
Africa for Palestine was represented by Ali Komape. We had this to say about the protest.
We are here today outside the Israeli embassy in Pretoria, South Africa, to protest against the ongoing killings of Palestinian civilians, particularly Palestinian journalists. We are here to call for justice for Shireen Abu Akleh, who was killed execution style by an Israeli sniper. And we are saying as South Africans that our government has no business having diplomatic ties with such a country. We are calling for our government to cut ties with apartheid Israel over the continued violation of basic human rights. We cannot, as a country that comes from a dark history of apartheid, a dark history of human rights violation and war crimes, normalize relations with such a state.
As they concluded the picket, these protesters sang liberation songs and vowed to come back here every week until justice was served for Shireen Abu Akleh. For teleSUR English, I'm Clever Banganai, reporting live from Pretoria, South Africa.
With that, we've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at teleSUR English. You can also join us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I am Dio Martin. Thank you for watching.